Welcome back, friends, to That Impact Show. I'm your host, Shar Moore. This is a show where I'm humbled and honoured to speak to some exceptional entrepreneurs really creating positive impacts around the world. And today is no different. Today, I'm joined by Sharon Williams. She is an award-winning personal branding expert, CEO and founder of Taurus Marketing, one of Australia's highest profile integrated marketing agencies that's been around for 28 years. Known as the personal branding guru, Sharon was the first to launch her own trademarked and awarded personal branding offering, Taurus Profile. Sharon has brought over 1,500 brands to life, including Dicker Data, Aussie Pay, HCL Technologies, Philips, Cas Group, just to name a few. Sharon, thank you for taking the time to chat with us today and welcome to our show.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me on, Shar.
Taurus Marketing story, I know that there's going to be a great one behind it, but Sharon, take us back to where this all started some nearly 30 years ago.
Yes, well, I was working with my husband in an IT company. We were both employees of this IT company, and we set off around the world to travel around the world in 1 year and take a year off when we just got married. And that IT company contacted us and asked us to stop in Hong Kong and work. And we stayed there for a little while. And then we came down to Australia. And we were newlyweds and I fell pregnant with Charlotte. And then my boss at the time down here in Sydney said, "Oh, well, you'll be off then, won't you?" Which was a bit of a shock because I hadn't thought I was going to be giving up work. And one of the competitors of that company rang me and said, "Would you like to start working with me?" And I waddled in 9 months pregnant with Charlotte in my tummy and then pushed her back in 2 weeks later and named the company on the day she was born. So the company is the same age as her. And just started slowly, Shar, just contracting. And then you get to the point where you're doing too many hours and you need somebody else. And do you take a full-timer or a part-timer? And then I took another part-timer. We started with working mums. So it was an extraordinary time where other women had been retrenched or asked to leave just because they'd fallen pregnant. And they were in really high places in companies and very clever girls. And so we really worked together. I suppose in those days, we called it job sharing, but now we'd call it hybrid and part-time and whatever it's called now. But really, we started what the pandemic has brought in to be the norm, working from home, making sure clients were serviced. And Taurus came out of that experience. So something good came out of losing a job because I had a baby.
I love that. Okay. So Sharon, friends listening, there's a lot of people that are curious about how to stand out. And I think especially after the pandemic, social media blew up. More people were online that weren't before because we had all this time. People were in lockdowns. And so they were using the social media platform to feel connected and also trying to get some traction for their brands. One thing that we get asked a lot, which I'd love your opinion on, is in such a noisy, busy world, how do brands stand out? How do they really position themselves as something unique and different?
Well, I think the main thing is to attract the sort of people that you want as customers. And if you can think of most industries, there's multiple suppliers. So there's multiple corner shops, there's multiple tire places, petrol garages, PR agencies, hairdressers, beauticians, there's insurance companies, from the top to the bottom, we've always got multiple choices. And I think what we want to do as a brand is reach out in a way that attracts the people we want to be our customers. So as soon as we can attract like-minded individuals to our brand and have a clear idea of who they are, then it's easy to run a brand for as long as I have, because people know who we do and we don't want. No. So we are entrepreneurs. We're the agency run by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs with a no-bull approach. Now, if someone immediately doesn't think they're very entrepreneurial, well, then that's not the right fit for us. Yeah. If they're not going to like no bull, suggest straight talking. So if someone's not going to like straight talking, then that's not for us. So I would say that knowing who you want as a customer and then offering that service is important. And then also reputation, because reputations take years to build and only days or hours to destroy. So you're really only as good as your last job.
Yes, that's so true, isn't it? Especially with social media now, things can go
Yeah.
viral so quickly when you do something wrong. Back in the early days, Sharon, because I guess being in business for nearly 3 decades, you've seen a lot. And so a lot of COVID businesses have sprung up in the last few years. When you first started your business, I know you've got some very clear boundaries now on who you will and won't work with, but when you first started, were you accepting anyone, or did you clearly know from day one, this is us, whether we need the money and the client or not? No, we're going to stick to this. Or did you take anyone with a heartbeat like a lot of us do when we first start, and then you
Yeah.
worked out what you wanted?
Yes, I think I was naive in knowing what was the right client and what wasn't at the beginning. So at the beginning,
Okay.
I was new to business. I was not sure what I was going to be when I started out. I mean, I just started out contracting and then had created this agency and had a sort of fairly clear vision on what we were going to be like, but had no experience in being able to interview a prospect to know whether that person was right or not. But I did pretty quickly work out what I didn't want. And I did learn. And by the way, the best thing that I ever did was go through sales training. And by asking qualifying questions, actually be able to qualify out somebody really quickly. And bearing in mind, I'm in a business to business situation, not a business consumer. I'm not in a corner shop. I'm not in retail. I'm actually working for businesses. That was a set of questions that allowed me to determine whether this company was going to be somebody that I wanted to work with. And it's not a case of, oh, I don't want to work with you. It's a case that I'm going to be good for you and you're going to be good for me.
Right.
It's a partnership. So it wasn't that I didn't want to work with people. It was that who can I serve best and who I can't.
Got it. And that's playing up to our strengths, really, isn't it? And again, not trying to be a people pleaser. When we first start business, it's like anyone with a heartbeat will do. And then you start to establish those boundaries. And you touched on earlier, Sharon, I want to dig deeper into this, that, what is that right time to bring someone on part-time or full-time? And now you've got a full agency of teams, and your recent appointment to managing director, which you might want to share as well, to inspire some of our friends listening. But when did you know it was the right time? And sometimes people can grow too quickly, or they don't grow quick enough and they do too many hours and burn out. What's that sweet spot in your experience?
Yes, I think the best advice for your listeners, Shar, is that read the market. So right now, it would be great to hire lots of people and grow and get more people on board. I'm like most leaders, I've got an ego, so I like the idea that I've got lots of people working for me. But there is a recession that's threatened here in Australia, and therefore it would be really smart not to do that right now.
Yes. Yeah.
And we've had some natural attrition that I was talking to you about earlier, and we won't race to go and replace that quickly, because in life you do realize that everything happens for a reason. And maybe this is the time to actually stay sharp and stay lean, to make sure that if the interest rates and the effect that that's having on the economy here in Australia does accelerate us into a recession or difficult times, then we're really well placed to wear that.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. It is about reading the market and being aware. And so that leads to another question. And I love opposing thoughts on this show as well. So feel free to give me what you truly think. I'm finding at the moment more so, we have a lot of conversations. A lot of our clients are international in the US, and we're finding there's two groups of people. There's one group of people and leaders that are like investing triple to what they would normally do prior to pandemic days, and they're putting themselves out there more. And we're working on this global coffee table book, and we're bringing 100 leaders together, and so they're jumping into things like that. Then there seems to be no one in the middle that we're finding now, whereas before there kind of a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We're finding the second group of people who are now sitting back, watching, and people that normally were leaders leading from the front, they're now leading from the back. They're waiting to see what else is going to happen, circumstances outside of themselves. What are your thoughts around that? Are you seeing two groups of people, and what are your opinions around that?
I think in every industry it's different. So we could look
Okay.
at different situations in different industries. I mean, if you take hospitality right now, it's very tough for people.
Yeah.
I'm very glad that I'm in the business that I'm in, business to business. I deal with businesses, so I'm not relying on that consumer spend to go up or down.
Yes.
But certainly I've spent the first 6 months of this year investing heavily in the business. We've done a big rebrand for the first time in 20 years. We've got a new logo. We're digitizing our offering to an e-commerce offering. So I've spent for the beginning of this year, contrary to my industry. And now I've made those changes and made those investments, and now hopefully I'll sit and reap the reward of those. So personally, I've done both.
Yes.
I've put my money where the brand is, and now I'm watching in terms of conservative towards the end of the year. But we've been partying all year in terms of made some really big changes to the business, which is exciting.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. And I love the new branding too. And so, Sharon, in 30 years of business, plus all your previous experience, what would say one of your biggest lessons has been?
In my company, I think probably in most businesses, it's all about the people. So when I've got good people on board, then the company tends to go really well. When I've got people who aren't perhaps as aligned as I would like, the business doesn't go well.
Right.
So I run a consulting firm. So I don't wait. I'm not in a manufacturing. I'm not watching a conveyor line going along. Actually, I've got people consulting. So when I've got strategically aligned, competent, capable, happy people in the company, then my company is a very nice place to be.
Yes.
We can even have really strategically competent, happy, capable people and difficult clients. And you can get by if your team is all aligned. Yes, certainly the biggest thing over the years has been hiring the right people.
Yes.
And I am extremely lucky to have had probably in the 29 years I've been running Taurus, 5 or 6 extraordinary leaders who I've mentored and who've run the business with me. And of course, one of those is Sam that you were just referring to, with just 5 years with me, and she's just taken on the job of managing director.
Oh, that's amazing. And, friends listening, if you're working and you're at a young age, it's all out there for you. Just keep your head down and, find a mentor like Sharon in your company, and it's all possible. So I love hearing that. They are our future. So I love that. You touched on team, and, this is an interesting conversation that I'd like to have with you. We're all about impacting 1 million people, and teams within a company are so important. But in the same token, so are our clients. And you shared earlier around your criteria, whether you're a fit for them and they're a fit for you. Have you ever been in a situation where you've needed to fire a client, not a team member?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I remember very early on, we had a client with someone at the helm, and that person was very rude and aggressive. And in the end, I let them know that was not where we wanted to be. And again, Shar, I'm very lucky. I run my own company. I can choose, I can make those decisions. There are lots of people who work for companies where they can't make those decisions. So one of the very true benefits and wonderful things about running Taurus is that I call the shots. I hire, I fire. I rarely fire, but I hire. My mistakes are mine mistakes. My successes are mine, and the decisions around the business are mine. And so when it goes well, I can pat myself on the back, and when it doesn't go well, it's my fault, and I need to learn and make sure that. So there's a huge amount of accountability with a business like this. And and you can never rest on your laurels. You've always got to try being better and faster and smarter and looking out for what's changing in the world. And that's what keeps it exciting, because it's really a new business every year.
Yes, very much so. And I love that. There's so many great points. And friends, if you're listening, I hope you wrote some things down there as well, because it's so true. We are in control, and it's why a lot of us left. I worked in corporate as well. It's why we left. We wanted to have fun. I want to wake up every day excited and have clients that are friends. And, when we stand in Times Square in New York, launching this book next year, I want to stand there and go, there's 100 of my friends here from all over the world and have the best week ever, right? So when you think about like social media at the moment, it's a light with everyone out there trying to make their mark in the world and share what they're doing. You talked about owning your mistakes as an entrepreneur. I want to touch on that briefly, because there's this sense of some people playing on fake book, right? Where it's this picture perfect business, picture perfect life, picture perfect, friendship, relationship, whatever. But we know behind the scenes, everyone goes through life. There's stuff that happens, the wheels fall off. And I'm finding that there's more of a calling now than ever before for authenticity, especially from leaders. Do you feel, or would you encourage people watching this and listening to this, that it's okay to share when you're facing something? Because if your audience or your client don't know, they might be able to help you with the solution, but because you look like you've all got it going on all the time, they can't offer any help. What is your thoughts around authentic leadership sharing on social media?
Yeah. Well, we've all moved towards that in the last few years. I mean, I'm from Britain. I'm British. I'm English, and of course, we always had the stiff upper lip and not share anything personal. And that definitely has changed over the years. So now, as leaders, we're expected to share a lot more about our real selves and what's going on in the world. And can I just say, Shar, rather than call out for authentic leaders, now we are asked to share more about what we think personally and what's going on in our lives. I'd like to call out for authentic employees, because the world has actually changed in the last few years, and the pandemic has created an environment where perhaps you would think, wouldn't you, that having been through a semi-war, they would be tougher and able to cope with hardship and push through, like my grandparents, for example, who experienced the First and Second World Wars, or Second World Wars, that would be, certainly were able to deal with hardship. But the young at the moment seem to not be able to have those hard conversations. And until they do, they won't stand up to leadership, because leaders need to be able to have the tough conversations. And I'm seeing a lot of young people at the moment. I run an intern program, and I'm very passionate about growing young people. And I'm surprised at how many can't actually say what they think, and actually work through issues in the workplace that require an element of not confrontation, but discussion and evaluation. And that worries me a bit. And it also means we've got a different workforce out there. So now what's happening is our workforce are tending to jump with their feet. Which, I mean, I had lots of jobs before I hit the age of 30. So, who am I to talk? I probably had about 8-9 jobs, I think, from 18 to 30. So I think I'm the biggest millennial out. But that does interest me, that people aren't prepared to put up with a few moments of, say, high tension or high stress with client work, or with, and we're a fast-paced organization, but we don't work outside of our hours on the whole. And that's just worrying me. It's worrying me with the youngsters that I'm seeing, that I would, and I'm positioning this as let them be authentic and be able to say what they think, rather than hide what they think and then make decisions because they didn't address what they wanted to. And that's an interesting thing for a leader. So yes, maybe there's a sway, maybe there's a whole set of articles you and I can investigate and work on there, because I think it's time we called out for the authentic employee, not the authentic leaders. And we're still on that pendulum of swinging to more authentic leadership. The authentic leaders out there are the ones that do talk about how they are and what they want and how they're feeling. but yeah, employees, let's call you
Interesting.
to the same levels
That's a
or
great
same
point.
standards of
Mm.
ability to work through to leadership.
Yes, that's a great point. So it leads me to a question. And yes, let's get you to write an article for our new magazine site we're launching next month, actually, Feminescence. But let's actually have that conversation, because for things to change, we need to change the narrative, and that starts with each one of us. And so, what do you think are some solutions to that? How do we make employees as a whole across social media feel comfortable? Do you think in the past they may have shared something and then been trounced or potentially fired because they've raised their voice? What sort of culture and environments can we create within our companies so that employees feel confident to share? And that builds their resilience, doesn't it? When they know they can share it in a safe space, it's being heard. It may not be addressed the way they want it, but at least they're being heard.
Yes, and I think that's the skill set that we're going to have to grow.
Mm,
I'm not necessarily just talking about social media. I'm talking
no,
about the ability to rectify and troubleshoot and
no.
problem solve. Um, and it's definitely an interesting one, because we want young people to problem solve, to be able to solve
Mm,
the problems of the future. You know, we've got AI coming where we can just ask the
yeah.
questions, but a lot of the world's a lot of world leadership and a lot of leadership is about problem solving and being able to actually identify the problem and fix it. And I don't want a young workforce that walks away from the problem rather than
No,
tries to fix it. So
absolutely.
it's an interesting dilemma that we're facing at the moment. And I also think that will swing through soon. I mean, having been in business
Mm,
so long, I've seen it. I've seen things
yeah.
swing, either way. And by the way, I don't believe in this sort of trying to keep employees happy. I think if you were trying to run a business and keep every employee happy, you'd be running around by the hour,
Yeah.
um, affecting people, because people seem to be judging things now by how happy they are. And life is not like that. You know,
No. Mm,
great if you can have a job that you love and great that you can work with good people. But
yeah.
I don't think we can keep happiness levels at
No.
100%
No.
all day. And so good luck to the employer who thinks that he's going to keep his
Oh.
workforce happy. I
Oh
mean,
gosh.
I've just been had a lovely chat with one of my team members, and they use words with me like empathetic, kindness, grace, encouraging. They're really nice words, and they were echoing how they find me as a leader. Um, they're nice, positive things.
Mm,
But I can't keep that person happy. You know, I
no.
can't be
No.
responsible, and they're not
No.
responsible for my happiness.
No. That's
So
right.
this well-being in the workforce, and trying to keep a content workforce,
Yeah.
good luck, good luck,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I think now you'd be working on a one-on-one basis, on the hour through the day. I
Yeah.
think
So
I
true.
think what I think we have to ask more of the people that work for us to be part of the journey, and
Yes.
I think we as leaders need to give everything we can to make our environments as positive as they are, and I know that I create a positive environment.
Yeah.
But so interesting. The good thing at the moment
Mm,
in my company is that our clients are very stable businesses. So
right.
while the workforce has been changing because of
Yes.
hybrid, because of pandemic, because of lack of travel, and because of lack of therefore of choice, our client base has been very solid, which is good.
That's fantastic. And that creates that sense of security as well, which should, for the right team members, make them feel happy because they know that they're secure. And the grass is always greener where you water it, right? But often people do think the grass is greener on the other side. It's where you water it. And it's culture also comes from within. I've managed some very big teams when I was in Asia in the spa industry. I had over 500 staff. Oh my gosh, if I was in charge of making every one of them happy, I would never sleep. It's just not possible. And you're not in control. And I think social media also has a little to answer to in that sense of that dopamine hit you get when you put a post up and you're waiting for the likes, and that doesn't happen in real world. You don't need your boss coming around every couple of seconds giving you a little dopamine hit. So I think there's the reality side of what we all do. Sharon, look, there's so many things I'd love to talk to you about and ask you, but as we wrap up today's show, what's some advice or suggestions you could give to some of our listeners who are in business and they're really wanting to know how to get their brand to stand out there? What's some little tips you could give them today, please?
Lovely. So for your brand to stand out there, it does need to stand out. So it can't be bland or look at the competition, gather up all your competitive logos and brands and see what they're doing, and then do better than that. So I always think marketing isn't that clever. Look at what everyone else is doing and then do better so that you do stand out. So if someone isn't on that platform, be on that platform. If someone is dominating that platform, well, don't try and dominate it. Go somewhere else. So the best place to start is through research and then find out where you can make traction.
Great tips. Thank you so much.
We took an ad, Shar. We took an ad on a main road near here on a cinema, and it's quite a big advert, and it's been running for 2.5 years, and it's become like a status symbol. It was an unusual thing to do, but we did it, and we're standing out.
I love that. So stand out, be different, and that's you got to cut through the noise and rattle the cages of your industry. I love that. Some great tips. Thank you so much for joining us today on our show. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.